Good morning, Imagine, and happy Sunday. Next week, we will not be meeting virtually online. Instead, we have our next drive-through church experience back at the Sandbox at our normal time meeting, 10 o'clock, Sandbox parking lot. We are going to have our next drive-through experience, and it's going to be something so incredibly special, and it'll be Thanksgiving themed. So if you want to come in your Thanksgiving best, next Sunday is the time and the moment to do so. And so it'll be a time where we'll be able to gather together in a safe fashion, socially distant, 6 feet apart, as we have something very special planned for you. So if you know someone that's not logging on right now, if you want to give them a heads up and let them know that, that would be great. So next week, we're not meeting here virtual. We will be meeting in person in your cars, drive-through experience at the Sandbox at 10 o'clock. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm excited for worship. You know, even for worship, I think about in these last couple of weeks, hearing some familiar songs that we've sung before during our virtual time together, and it amazes me how something that is so familiar, the lyrics, the songs, how every time I hear it, it hits differently. And I pray, Imagine Church, that you would experience just the sacredness of what worship can be, this special time as you draw near to the Lord and allowing the lyrics to really speak to you while remembering your journey and how far you've come and where you're at. Worship is such a powerful time because it puts into words an expression of where we're at, whether it's a petition of prayer, of us lamenting or us saying thank you. And so I'm excited to gather again for our moment in worship. I'm excited for the word as Kevin is going to be preaching on newness, because that's the reality. I know you've heard me say this before, how we're in a new season, but we really are. Not just as a church, but I would even say in your own individual journey as well. Yes, I know that there are moments that just feel so mundane and it feels like, a big Groundhog Day. But the reality is that there's always movement. Whether it's subtle movement or big movement, there always is that motion in your journey. Whether it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, or 2 steps back and 3 steps forward. And so I'm excited to hear about this word spoken on newness and this new season that we find ourselves in. It's so interesting how I actually ran into several different people, this past week, that are part of Imagine, and, we have our masks on and we're 6 feet apart and we're catching up to the best that we can, and just hearing from these different people of how so much has changed. How they felt like for so long they were stagnant and they were crying out and they were desiring breakthrough. And then all of a sudden, breakthroughs happen. And not only has breakthrough has happened, it's happened so much and it's happening so quickly, where they're actually, struggling to take in the very moments that are changing and to be present to these big moments of answered prayers that we could easily gloss over and forget that these are moments that we have been desiring to see happen. And so how do you live with a flow of life while embracing and honoring and celebrating how far you've come? Or if you find yourself in this place of deep wrestle, how do you give honor to this liminal space that brings so much discomfort? How do you allow God to truly do the work that God is intending to do while surrendering, to the present moment, while realizing that life is still happening, though we feel stuck and stagnant? And so I'm excited again for what is to come for the church, for what is to come in your individual journey, for what is to come this Sunday. And so would you imagine, be well, and would you know that wherever you're at, would you know that we are with you and that you are not alone?
Consuming fire, my heart's desire. Oh, how I need you more, a fresh outpour with no resistance. I give permission, so come now invade my heart. This life is yours. Come fill me up, Holy Ghost. Shine bright to the whole world. Cause your love, your love. Come set me on a holy fire. Burn bright to the whole world. Find your love, your love. Consuming fire. Consuming fire. My heart's desire. So, oh, how I need more, a fresh outpour with no resistance. I give permission, so come now invade my heart. This life is yours. Come fill me up, Holy Ghost. Shine bright to the whole world. Cause your love, your love. Come set me on a holy fire. Burn bright to the whole world. Find your love, your love. This is my one desire, and only this I seek, to be a living fire, consume completely. This is my one desire, and only this I seek, to be a living fire, consume completely. This is my one desire, and only this I seek, to be a living fire, consume completely. Come fill me up, Holy Ghost. Shine bright to the whole world. Cause your love, your love. Come set me on a holy fire. Burn bright to the whole world. Find your love, your love. Come fill me up, Holy Ghost. Shine bright to the whole world. Cause your love, your love. Come set me on a holy fire. Burn bright into the whole world. Find your love, your love.
If I could go back and talk to myself at the beginning of the pandemic, I would want her to know that she'd have her good days and her bad days, but ultimately she'd be okay. That she'd soon understand what it means to love herself and know that she isn't alone in this time of quarantine. This has been a beautiful awakening that none of us had ever asked for. I learned to embrace my own voice, whether that be in the time of our presidential election or being an advocate for my own beliefs. That this time would teach me how to be present for myself and for other people. That seeing people for who they really are and having the opportunity to retell my own story is a blessing. The feeling of loneliness doesn't last forever. I would tell Ariel 9 months ago that she'd no longer be afraid to go after what she really wants because God was present in every moment. And He still continues to be present in every moment now.
If I can give myself some advice, before the pandemic happened, I would say that this year is going to be filled with stress, anxiety, worry, but regardless of all that, you're still going to make it out, and you'll still get through the other end, and with even more, with resilience, with strength, and just more growth, and everything's going to be okay.
This year I have lost, won, failed, cried, laughed, loved, and every other emotion I can possibly have during this time. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because if we didn't have this pandemic, it wouldn't let me become the version that I am now. I think if I could tell myself at the beginning of the pandemic that I would be coming out as a better version of me, I wouldn't believe it. And I know that I could just suggest to keep on going, have faith, because anything that God has been putting us through, I thank Him, because even though I don't understand it at times, He knows and exceeds everything that we need.
You're going to experience furlough for the first time and know what it's like to not have money coming in. While this is scary, your entire routine is going to change. But it's okay, because you will come out of it stronger, and you will create new habits and spend more time with family. You will achieve a personal health goal you didn't even think was possible. Don't give up, because your hard work will and does pay off. You'll also prioritize personal growth and finally start reading all of the books you've wanted to. You'll start listening to the podcast, and you'll actually sign up for your first ever coaching program. You'll be so grateful for all of this time off work you never would have had this pandemic not happened. Lastly, you will experience a roller coaster of emotions. Some days will be really good, and some days will feel dark, lonely, and depressing as you wonder when this will end. When I'll be able to travel again, go to events, hug friends. But it's okay. Just breathe and stop focusing on the future so much. Just be here for the present moment. You'll get through it.
Hallelujah.
So the main thing that I wish I knew at the beginning of the pandemic is that everything is going to be just fine and okay. And I wish I had seen this time as such a gift instead of something really stressful and always thinking that everything is unknown. I wish I knew that I was still gonna have a job and my family and my friends. This time was actually pretty amazing in certain ways. I was able to explore all these new interests, start new daily practices that I love, reconnect with people I haven't talked to or seen in a while. But yeah, overall, I wish I had seen this time at the beginning as something really special and that I'll always remember, and that everything is going to be just fine.
If there's anything that I would tell myself at the beginning of this pandemic is to be expectant on the Lord, that His ways, His plans, what He has planned for you is always bigger than what you are imagining for yourself. And I feel like I'm experiencing that right now, and I'm just enjoying every moment that I can to glorify Him and to find the joy in the moment, find the joy in the daily things that you do, because when you do that, it multiplies and you're able to be expectant on Him.
What would I tell myself before the pandemic after experiencing the pandemic? When I think about this question, what comes to my mind immediately is just always trust that if you are doing the right thing and serving others in God's name, always trust that you're doing the right thing. Because during the pandemic, I looked at it as a time to capitalize, a time to level up, because I was thinking maybe I'm not doing enough. But when you think of it from an perspective of, I guess, money and a perspective of success in what the world looks at success as, you learn that it's tiring and you learn that it isn't fulfilling. So me being able to trust what I was doing, when I'm doing the right thing, and living with purpose according to God, kind of like allowed me to slow things down. And like what everyone says, I know it's so cliche, but I just trusted the process, because trusting the process allows you to fall in love with it. Because when you fall in love with the process, you truly get dopamine hits off the process, and you learn that the process is where you truly find happiness. And then you begin to be grateful for the process, and when you're grateful for it, it becomes so much easier, the journey becomes so much more enjoyable.
For myself, I just want to say that you're meant to be in that time and that season and that week and in that day.
Living through the pandemic, it's been crazy. The things that I've learned during this time, these 8 months, is that the world doesn't stop. All the things keep happening. People still get married, or diagnoses that they may not expect. All of that still happens during a pandemic. A few things that I've been hanging on to is that I'm not alone. The Lord is with me. I need to focus on the positive because there's a lot going on. And I try to touch bases with nature. That helps me to deal during this pandemic time. And then also to find ways of being creative, whether that's sewing or painting, just something that is productive instead of just watching the TV.
bird stand next to him like a candle to the sun. Unfailing Father, who compares to his great love? Behold his holy Son, the Lion and the Lamb given to us. The Word became a man, my soul shall know its Savior. Forsaken for the sake of all mankind, salvation is in his blood. Jesus Messiah, the righteous died for love. It wasn't over, but he is the risen one. Then sings my soul, then sings my soul, how great your love is, how great your love is. Then sings my soul, then sings my soul, how great your love is, how great your love is. Then sings my soul. Behold, I have a friend, Spirit breathing holy fire within, my ever-present help, speaking truth when I can't find it. Love this broken heart and light my way till my time on earth is done. Oh, Holy Spirit, within me thy kingdom come. Oh, Holy Spirit, your work in me be done.
At first, you won't leave your dark room. Too hard to get up with 3 walls and a curtain, COVID prowling outside, and nothing for certain. You'll lose your job, and you won't qualify for unemployment. And everything you loved won't bring you enjoyment. You'll cry, and you won't shower for days, and days become weeks, and then months, and just haze. But nothing is set in stone. You've got time. Just hold my hand and let them go. The thoughts that say worthless, behind, and alone. Your parents, they'll sit you down seeming out of the blue and tell you you need to move out. Out of love, of course, and not to be cruel. So you'll find a place, a space where it's peace and just you. Nothing is set in stone. You've got time. Just hold my hand and let go of old ways of thinking and being and seeing, because Black lives matter. You thought you knew it before, but you'll know it better soon. Dismantling systemic racism, white privilege, and supremacy. Standing with brothers and sisters, not as a sorority or like a fraternity, but looking to Jesus' example as he stood and as he stands in solidarity for eternity. Nothing is set in stone. You've got time. Just hold my hand and let go of expectations of family and friendship, because after 28 years of toxicity, she'll tell you she finally understands. And things will strangely feel sisterly. She'll move out too to Texas, land of hey y'alls and cowboy boots and instead of shoes, but now she'll know if she needs help, she can call you. Nothing is set in stone. You've still got time. Just hold my hand and let go of all your plans. You already know they never work out how you imagine, and when you least expect it, suddenly medical issues will arise, but things are no longer a surprise. So you'll tell her you're there for her and your shoulders are strong enough to bear whatever she, they, or whoever needs. Things are not set in stone. You've got time. Just hold my hand and let go of the stress, the mess, the anxiety, and the need to control. It will all work out one way or another. Regardless, you are loved and you are cherished. And the year is really nothing at all. God's got you, I've got you. It's okay to fall. Shame turns to mercy, anger to grace. So just open your heart, take a breath, and set your own pace.
Let's get into this a little bit. You know, what was it? Maybe like almost 2 weeks ago was my 36th birthday, right? And one of the things I wanted to do on my 36th birthday, I had been like waiting for, I was excited about, and I was preparing to do was, after finishing almost the entire rough draft of the book that I'm writing, I waited to write the intro until the end. One, just because the intro was going to be shaped a lot from the substance of the book, but also it was like a treat, you know, because the book is personal in many ways. I just was really excited about writing the intro, sort of as this is the framing, this is the introduction to the book as a whole. I had been waiting to write it. So I just thought it would be really cool to write the intro of my book on my 36th birthday, right? New beginnings, all that good stuff. So I had this perfect little moment planned for how that situation of writing my book was going to go. Do you ever have a perfect moment planned out where it's like whether it's a romantic moment or a creative moment or your spiritual moment of a time of silence, it's like you create and imagine this perfect little scenario that you're going to, your own private little movie moment. Right? Here was my moment in my mind. So on my 36th birthday, I'm going to drive to the top of St. Louis Heights, to the state park, sort of the little forest area up there. And I'm going to go up there and I'm going to sit on one of those picnic benches right under the roof. And I'm going to write my intro by myself in sort of the quiet of the forest. I thought, and for the first time in months, like since summer, it's been so hot, I'm going to wear pants. Because for me, that sounded weird. I normally wear shorts, or I wear bottoms, but I meant I'm going to wear long pants. Because there's something about being able to wear pants outside in Hawaii without sweating that just makes me feel kind of cozy. You know what I mean? It's like, if I can ever wear pants comfortably in Hawaii and even feel just a little bit of crispness of cold air on me, I love it because I'm just hot all the time. So it's a weird scene, I get it, but I'm going to go up there, I'm going to be in the forest, I'm going to wear long pants, I'm going to feel this crisp air, it's going to be quiet, it's going to be cool, I'm going to listen to what I listen to when I write, I'm going to have this perfect little moment. None of it went that way. Do you ever have those moments too where you plan out your perfect little movie moment of your life, and then when it comes to it, nothing turns out that way, and it's so easy to just feel frustrated, right? So I drive to the top of St. Louis Heights, and when I get to the rec area, the state park that's up there, I get to the gate and it's closed. I've never seen that gate closed before in my entire life. But the one day I planned my perfect little movie moment on my birthday, it's closed. Which, the park's still open, like the forest, the hiking is still open, but you just can't park there. So I have to turn around and I park on the streets. And by the time I'm done parking on the streets, like, get everything out of my car, I have my computer, like my bag, I'm carrying it, I have my long pants on, and I walk through the forest. I'm already getting hot. Like, I can feel my internal temperature gauge heating up. I'm starting to get that moist, oh God, I'm gonna start sweating in my shirt. So I'm already a little frustrated at that. But thankfully, I'm so weird, I brought shorts with me just in case I got hot, because that's how I know I am. Now I'm hot and I'm walking into the area, and a guy walks by me and he starts talking to me. I don't want to talk in that moment, all right? I don't want to talk. This guy starts talking to me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I tell him I'm finishing writing this thing. And he's like, "Well, what is it about?" I'm like, "Bro, just keep walking. Please, just leave me alone." I just say, "Oh, here's the title," right? Then he goes, he starts talking about his spiritual journey and his Indian guru, right? And he says, "Oh, you guys see this thing on Facebook. The reception is not great up there." So he's waiting for it to load. He's like, "Just wait. Just wait. Hold on. Let me show you. Just wait." I'm like, "You're killing me inside right now. I'm anxious. You're making me more anxious. I want to get out of this. I feel cornered. Just leave me alone." I have to stop him from stopping me, right? I finally get to the table. I'm so hot. I have to change. I take my shoes and socks off. I change from pants to shorts, and I take my shirt off. So my perfect winter moment turns into me sitting in tie-dye shorts with no shirt on, no socks or shoes, trying to get my core temp to come down, sweating and like slapping mosquitoes off me as I'm trying to focus on writing this chapter. And on top of all that, I know it's a lot. There was like some exercises going on. So there was a massive helicopter, like a medic helicopter that was going back and forth over me almost the whole time in the beginning. I'm like, this is not how this was supposed to go. This is not how it's supposed to be. This is, you ever have those moments you plan and then it all feels like it gets taken from you? This is how life can feel when it comes to expectations and things not going the way we want them to go. For a lot of us, this is how all of 2020 has felt. See, we think the birth of a new thing usually begins and feels like this perfect movie scene that we're about to create. Right? Do you ever hear people say, it was like this beautiful sunset and then a hummingbird came near me, and in that moment I had this epiphany of, this is what that's the real beginnings, the real new things in your life is more like, I got beat up, nothing went the way I wanted it to, I got kicked around, I fell, I was muddy, I was bleeding a little bit, and then in that moment I decided to start over. That's usually how newness is usually born out of the disruptions. And for a lot of us, that's how 2020 has felt. But despite all of that in your own version of your birthday moment of 2020 not going the way you wanted it to, the great Christian mystic Meister Eckhart says, and suddenly you know. It's time to start something new and to trust the magic of beginnings. And what I want to say to us today is, let's not wait until January 1st, 2021 to think about new beginnings. We've been through enough. We've struggled and we've been frustrated. Let's start opening our minds and our hearts to the magic of new beginnings right now. So turn with me to Ezekiel 36, 24 through 28. Just want to read this beautiful part of Ezekiel to give us a little sense of how do we start trusting the magic of new beginnings, like Eckhart says right now. Verse 24, for I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. I will remove from you a heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. Then you will live in the land I gave your ancestors. You will be my people You will be my people, and I will be your God. This new beginning, even for a nation, even after political turmoil, even after the social chaos that Ezekiel is speaking into, in this moment, this new beginning for his people was defined by a deep change in their heart, from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. Right? In the heart, in the ancient Israelite consciousness, was really, it's just the center of your being. In Jesus' time, they wouldn't say, I love you from the bottom of my heart. They would more say, I love you from the bottom of my splanchna, which is the Greek word for like kidneys. So that was another metaphor. Like to say, I love you from my kidneys was like us saying, I love you from the bottom of my heart. So the heart is a metaphor for the center of our being, right? I would say this, the heart speaks of the deepest spaces within humanity. So Ezekiel saying to the people after all of that, I want to turn your heart of stone, meaning that center space, your heart, I want to change that from closed and hard and stuck and brittle to flesh and open and warm and receptive. The new beginning begins with this transition and opening of our heart to the possibility of a new beginning and better things. Right? This one movie I really like, I kind of forget if it's a Guy Ritchie film, but it's very Guy Ritchie-ish. It's a movie called Smoking Aces. You know, Guy Ritchie did Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, The Gentleman. I love these types of movies. Like characters, moving parts, great twists. And, you know, Smoking Aces, it's this whole movie where there's so much like gratuitous action and little mini rivalries and backstabbings, and there's a million different things, shattered glass and magicians, right? All these characters and anarchists and big machine guns and flamethrowers. But what all of that noise on the surface was about, it was actually about one trying to get one guy a new heart. So there was somebody in the hospital who people had been hired to get the heart from another guy in order to get it to him. So in the midst of all of the noise, turmoil, chaos, broken glass, what that movie was actually about was one person getting a new heart. And to me, that movie in some ways is symbolic of so much of the activity and energy and chaos of our lives. So many of the things we are doing are actually centering around and connected with the deep desire we have for our hearts to be made new and to experience the substance of new beginnings. See, we move because we want new beginnings. We go on trips because we want new beginnings. We get new relationships because we want new beginnings. We get a haircut because we want new beginnings, right? People are like, new hair, new me. And it's like, new hair, same you, right? Unless we open our hearts, right? We get new outfits, we do, and none of these things are bad. They're all great. But let's not mistake those things for the newness that comes from God turning our hearts of stone into hearts of flesh. Because so often the changes we make on the surface of our lives actually express the desire we have for deep change in the soul of our lives. See, all of these other things we do can make us feel new for the moment, but eventually that moment fades, and what Ezekiel shows us is that a new beginning always starts deep within you, in your heart, in the center of your being. The love of God desires to see you, to warm you, to care for you, to comfort you, to heal you, to restore you, to redeem you, to put you back together, and to give you a new future. The heart of stone needs to become a heart of flesh, or your center needs to move from being closed and brittle into open and receptive. Meister Eckhart, then you just know the time comes to trust the magic of new beginnings. So I want to end with this, Luke 24, 1-3. This is a resurrection story. I jumped the gun. Last week I talked about Christmas. I'm jumping all the way forward to resurrection. So Luke 24, 1-3. One thing I want to say about this story is this is not a story about resuscitation. This is a story about resurrection. And those are not the same thing. So verse 1. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. Jesus had been killed. It's not a heart of stone, but it's a literal stone has come and has covered up the dead body of Jesus. And so these women come. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. So what they thought was closed was actually open. Think about what they thought was closed was actually open. And when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. Then it says they were wondering about this. The women came expecting a corpse, and they were surprised with wonder and mystery and awe and newness, and were just introduced to the possibility that this whole story might be different than what they always thought. See, to resuscitate is to fix what is broken. In resuscitation, something is not working, that thing gets fixed, and now that thing is back to normal and it is working the same way that it used to work. But resurrection is about something new being created out of the old. In resurrection, there is something that has died, something that is gone, something that is not supposed to stay the same. And resurrection means that thing has been born again, made new, and has been offered an entirely new beginning. The risen Christ's body was not found where it was laid. Resuscitation is returning to the old, but resurrection is about becoming the new. Some of you, even now, because of how much faith I have in God and how powerful God is to heal, some of you should not be found at the end of this year, even where you are right now. Some of you need to trust the magic of new beginnings right now, and so you can experience resurrection even in the next month and a half of your life. Some of you, there's things in your life right now that don't need to be resuscitated, that need to die, let go of, and relinquish in order to experience the depth and the power of resurrection at the end of this year. Some of you should not be found December 31st where you are right now. I'm going to tell a story about a young man who used to be a part of Imagine. I don't know how many of you know personally or remember Damien Packer. Here's a picture of Damien. When I first met Damien, he had just graduated from University of Hawaii. So he played football while he was there, and then he comes to a moment in his life where he graduates, and like you do when you graduate college, even more specifically as a college athlete, you start asking, what's next? What do I want? And especially if you've played sports your whole life and all of a sudden sports is going to be taken from you because your career is over, you start asking deeper questions of like, who am I without this? If I'm not Damien, the football player, who am I? Right? If I'm not this person, the soccer player, or with this job I had, or if I'm not this person in that relationship with them, without that external thing, who am I? So when I met Damien, he was in one of those classic, crisis, identity crisis. The old is gone and I have no idea who I'm going to become or who God's shaping me to be or how I can live, a life that is truly life, like Paul says, beyond this old identity that I've had. And so we would have just the best talks at that point about who are we beneath the surface based on everything we do? Who are we at the center of our being? What does it mean to be seen and loved by God? And so soon after he was in that sort of crisis, what's next place, Damien committed to do Teach for America. So Teach for America is like this 2-year program for people to study and get their master's in education while at the same time teaching students usually focused on under-resourced, underprivileged, and underserved areas. So Damien had a vision, being from Puna on the Big Island, to go back to Puna where he's from, to be able to work with, teach, and care for the kids who grew up in the same environment that he did, right? This amazing, beautiful vision. And I just talked to Damien on the phone this week, right? And now, that was 2.5 years ago or so when he was in that place, wondering, is it ever going to get better? Who am I beyond this, right? All of those questions our hearts, right, our kidneys, the center of our being asks. And after being in that critical state, now to see the resurrection. Because 2.5 years later, Damien has his master's degree in education. Right? He'd be trying to use all these, when I talk to him, he's using all these fancy words, talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he's trying to quote Socrates to me, right? He's a whole different person. 2.5 years later, it's resurrection. Master's in education, great job, solidified teaching with these kids. And now he's taking small steps towards fulfilling his dream of being a Paniolo in Puna. Right? There's pictures of him on his Instagram riding horses now. And he sent me a video that I thought about posting, but for some of you it might be too graphic. I'm not sure. But he's saying how he's, working on ranches more. And he talked about, I forget the word he used, it's like bucking calves. I don't know if it's bucking, I forget. I'm the last person who would know those things. But it's basically where someone has to rope a calf, and then it's his job to tackle the calf and put him down so they can either vaccinate or castrate or do whatever they have to do. So I'm like, you're basically just tackling baby cows. Is that what you're telling me? And he sent me a video where he one arm suplexed a cow. I thought to myself, we truly serve a God who wastes nothing. Because who would have thought all of those years tackling running backs in football prepared you for a moment like this to tackle these calves and put them down? But as I talk to him, I hear about his heart for the kids and his connection with them and the role he has. I'm like, this is not resuscitation. How do I recapture the old? This is a young man who was allowing an old thing to die, and 2.5 years later to see this powerful resurrection, this vision for the future of his new life that came from dying to the old, allowing that heart of stone to become heart of flesh, and letting the Spirit of God plant something new and work towards resurrection. Some of you should not be found December 31st where you are right now. When it comes to hope, you should be more hopeful. When it comes to love, you should receive more and be more open. When it comes to freedom, you should experience more from some of the letting go. When it comes to relationships, you should feel more connected because you've let some people in. Let's not wait until January 1st to start talking about the magic of new beginnings. Let's just dare to do that right now. Can you trust the magic of new beginnings? Can you open your heart to the Spirit that says, December 31st, let's not try to resuscitate. Let's open our hearts to resurrection. Can you trust that? Can you open up? Can you believe that you can be in a different place at the end of the year than where you are right now? Some of you, we've been through enough. Some of you, it's time to trust the magic of new beginnings, like Eckhart says, to allow God to turn that heart of stone into a heart of flesh. And some of you, if people came looking for you at the end of the year, where you are right now, you should not be able to be found because there's been a resurrection, just like that stone being rolled away from the grave. So let's start opening up and trusting that and preparing our hearts for that now. We don't have to wait till January 1st. That has nothing to do with the Spirit of God. Let's start opening up and trusting that now as we move towards the end of the year, because resurrection is the story of our world. So let resurrection become the defining theme for the story of your life for the rest of this year.
So thank you to everyone who shared earlier before the teaching and before worship. Thank you for being courageous and sharing a piece of your heart. Thank you for the worship crew, for the word from Kevin and from Cam, who edited this piece and allowing this moment to be possible. Would you know that we are so grateful for all of your gifts. And before we pray you out with a benediction, a good word spoken over the people, I was just reminded of all of the stories that were shared earlier. You know, what would they tell their former self? And it's just so profound. And I was on the phone earlier yesterday and speaking to a young man who has been part of our church when we were meeting in Bevy. But since then, he's moved to the mainland, and that's where he's at right now. And I had asked him, I had said, hey, you know, knowing everything that you know now, you know, knowing everything that you experience, what would you want your former self to know? And he said, simply, boldly, with confidence, 2 words. And he said, buckle up. And I love that. And that was just so moving to hear him say, I'd tell him, buckle up. Buckle up and essentially embrace this journey of rerouting and pivots and the constant motion of change, knowing though that resurrection is always to be found right at the edge or right at every corner, so to speak. And would you know that as you embrace the tough times and as you cling close to resurrection, as you buckle up and embrace this wild ride, would you know that you're not alone and that we are with you on this journey called this gift of life. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. And the community of Imagine says, amen. We love you, we miss you, and we cannot wait to see you, not virtually, but in person at the Sandbox next Sunday, 10 o'clock, Thanksgiving themed, coming your Thanksgiving best for our drive-through church experience. Be well, Imagine.